No, like that's why mental health issues are happening. I think if we did that today, that would be looked at as sinful. That nowhere in here does it say to follow the rules. I feel like this is why so many kids are falling away from the church. I'm sinning right now because I'm just feeling this. Welcome to the Slowish Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis. I'm a mama to 2 little girls and a parenting coach. It's become my mission to help families rekindle connection, to rebuild relationships on a foundation of safety and trust, and to give parents the tools they need to show up with empathy and compassion, no matter what situation may arise. If you are craving slowness, peace, and joy in your parenting, you've come to the right place. Alrighty, let's get into today's episode. Alrighty, on today's episode, we are going to be talking all about gentle parenting from a Christian perspective. I am going to go through 3 misconceptions that I think are going to be really helpful in helping you to decipher whether or not gentle parenting is really as bad as so many of these influencers are making it out to be. I want you to know that before I get into today's episode, I am pretty nervous. I don't know if you can tell in my voice, but I'm feeling nervous because, 2 reasons. 1, I don't like controversy and I don't want to stir the pot, but so many people have asked me about doing an episode like this because I have literally been researching whether or not gentle parenting is biblical since last year at this time. So it's been about a year. And I've looked at every side of the argument. I'm not somebody who's going to go into something saying, I believe in gentle parenting, and I'm going to find all the research that states that gentle parenting is the way to go. Because I do believe that there are 2 sides to every argument, and I want to see both sides. I want to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing and not make a blind decision. I feel like we could type anything we want to Google and we can find the answer that we want to find. And that was kind of my fear with so many of the influencers and authors that I was reading when it came to gentle parenting. Most of them were very against gentle parenting, and I felt like their research was like, maybe an hour before their podcast, they decided to look up gentle parenting and they went on parenting.com, which just killed me. And that's what they were using as their resource. Like, you don't even know, you haven't even researched it. You have no idea. And I feel like when you're talking about a topic as big as gentle parenting, you really need to have both sides of the argument laid out in front of you so you can see and decipher like which way makes sense for me and for my family, and what way makes sense with my relationship with the Lord and what I want to teach my children about God. And so that's really where this episode is coming from. So I have my notes here. I'm going to keep looking down because I don't want to get off topic. I have so much I want to talk about, so much I want to share, and I don't want to get off topic. With that being said, before we get into kind of the misconceptions, the nitty gritty, I want you to know that I think that you should study everything that I'm saying in this episode. I don't think you should be taking my word for it. I really hope that you look at every angle of what I'm saying, take the verses and bring them back to the Greek. Look at the context of the chapters, look at the authors and who they were writing to and the time period and just the context of everything, because I think that that was the number one thing that really frustrated with me with different authors and influencers is they were only looking for verses that fit their ideology, and they were not looking at basically the full picture. Now, with that being said, I cannot get into everything that I studied. I'm going to get into like 3 they're big topics, but 3 very little parts of really the whole big picture. So I will probably be doing more of these in the future. So if you are interested and you have like questions, please comment those below. I'm actually going to be having somebody else monitor them because I just do not do well with controversy as far as like it really upsets me and bothers me. So if you have something not nice to say, I'm going to just straight up say it. Please just don't say it at all because I'm not even going to read it, and it's just going to, be seen by somebody who's not going to care whether or not, you said what you said. So anyway, with that being said, if you want to learn more about ways to raise a godly child, I have done my 5 secrets PDF. You can go into the description and you can sign up for that there. All right, so let's get into the 3 biggest misconceptions. So number 1 is, I hear Christians say this all the time. But my child just does not obey me. So people believe that gentle parenting means that children do not obey their parents, which is so far from the truth. So when we look at the verse that this comes from, it is in Ephesians 6:1. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." And it's really important to know that this is the NIV translation, but pretty much like every translation across the board, it says something very similar. So when we look at this word obey in the Greek, here's what it means. It means to listen attentively, by implication, to heed or conform to a command or authority. So heed means to pay attention to, just so you're aware. And I think that it's really important to know that nowhere in here does it say to follow the rules, which I think so many of us think that's what obedience is. When I read this, it really shocked me because I was under the impression that obedience was like, you just do whatever somebody says, whether that's, it's somebody obviously in authority, but you just are doing what they say. And that's not at all what this says. This says to listen, like for me, that's like listening with my ears. Like I'm being attentive. I'm paying attention to what you have to say and considering it as part of, what decision I'm going to make from here. Now, I don't think the problem here is that gentle parents don't expect obedience. I think that a lot of gentle people who practice gentle parenting, I should say, they really struggle with permissive parenting because of their upbringing, because they're overcorrecting. And it's important to know that in gentle parenting, it's important to me that I have respect from my children. And this means like that's a need for me. Like there are times where I am needing respect. And when I'm saying this, you're like, okay, where are you going with this? Well, there are 2 very different things here. There is obedience and there's respect. And it sounds like there are a lot of moments where Christian parents are expecting respect from their child and not obedience. And I wrote down 2 different definitions that I kind of came up with because I think that the lines are very muddy. So obedience is when you listen to an authority. And remember, that's not saying like you're going to follow the rules of the authority, but you're listening to the authority. Now, if we go back to the definition though, the original, it says to conform to a command. I don't think here that that's meaning like, go pick up your room. And if you don't do that, you're getting a punishment. I don't think that that's what that's saying. I'm going to go with, this is like a command of the Lord, right? Like that was, when I was reading what scholars had to say, that's what I was getting from that. So with that being said, right, what is respect? So obedience is this listening to our authority. And what is respect? Respect is to be understanding of someone else's wishes and feelings and showing regard for it. And so I want to like think about something here for just a second. So if as a parent, we are, I'm going to say demanding our child to do something, whether it's clean their room or whatever, that sounds a lot like an expectation or a wish that we are having for our child. It's not something that is, impeding on their safety or their well-being or whether or not it's going to affect their relationship with the Lord. Because truthfully, if your child doesn't pick up their blocks, it has nothing to do with their relationship with the Lord. Now, I know where I'm going to get arguments here. Yeah, but Alexis, like, if my child doesn't obey or respect the little things, they're not going to obey the Lord. That is not true. That is not true. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that. I believe that when a child feels like they're in a trusting and safe relationship, whether that is with us or that is with the Lord, they are going to want to respect what we have to say, what we want them to do. And they're going to follow in obedience what we've asked. And so I know you're probably still a little bit confused, like, okay, like unblur the lines for me. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples because I think examples for me are really helpful. In our home, obedience looks something like this. Let's say we're playing outside and my daughter starts running towards the road. So I'd get down in front of her, I'd crouch down and I'd say, hey, honey, it looks like you're going to run out to the road. I can't let you run out to the road. That's my boundary. And this next part is really important because I don't want anything to happen to you. I don't want a car to come and hit you, and I want to keep you safe. So if you run out to the road again, we're going to have to either go in the house or go out in the backyard or whatever, your boundary may be in that moment, the consequence of that thing. Notice there was no punishment there, which I'll get to in a minute. But this consequence is what's going to happen if you can't follow basically my command here, right? My boundary for you. And if she does it again, she's done, right? The consequence happens. That's obedience, right? We are looking out for the safety, the well-being, or the relationship of our child with the Lord. Now let's give an example for respect. So I'm in the house and all of a sudden I notice my child has taken out every toy known to man. And there's about 150 toys on the floor. And out of my anger while they're watching their TV show, I say, you guys need to get up and pick up all those toys right now. And they do not get up and they do not pick up their toys. So I, in that moment, am needing respect and I am feeling disrespected. Okay. The very key difference there between this disobedience and respect. So I think what's really important to know is like, okay, when I'm evaluating if this is my child being disobedient, have I just demanded them to do something without even paying attention to or caring about, one, what's going on in their world? Have I given them a clear boundary and a clear expectation? And is this purely a wish of mine? Because it's really just a wish or a expectation of mine to have these toys picked up on the ground. This has nothing to do with their safety, their well-being, or their relationship with the Lord. Nothing. So for me, this is just a respect issue, which doesn't necessarily mean that's wrong at all. Like there are times where I am needing respect, and let's go with this example a little further. So let me share with you how I would handle a block situation. So I'm seeing toys and blocks all over my house, 150 toys out, and I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. Key here, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. Then out of frustration, I look over at my daughter who's sitting on the couch and I say, you need to come pick up all these toys when you're done with your movie. And she says, okay, I will, right? Then what she'll do is she'll get up and she'll go upstairs and she will never clean up these toys. Now there's a few reasons why she may not have. One, she may have forgotten. Two, she may have been feeling a little overwhelmed when she saw all the toys, because I was overwhelmed as an adult and she just didn't know where to start. But the key here is that was not disobedience, that was disrespect. And so I want to handle that as disrespect, which means I would be coming in, getting really curious, like, hey, what happened for you in that moment? Because I asked you to pick up the blocks after your show, so what happened? And she can say, oh, Mom, I forgot. I all of a sudden thought I wanted to go play with my babies upstairs, and so I just ran upstairs and started playing with my babies. Like, I can't tell you, and like how many times that stuff happens, and I know that happens to me. So like I cannot expect my child to be performing better than I am. And that was a huge realization for me. Okay, so let's move on to misconception number 2, which is gentle parenting means I do not punish my child. This drives me crazy. So correction and punishment. These are two, I should say correction, punishment, and discipline are 3 words that I feel like Christians use interchangeably. They're all very different when you look at the Greek of them, what their meanings are, and all of that. But I want you to know that on a daily basis, I am correcting my child. I'm probably correcting my child more than you are disciplining. Every single thing that's happening and going on, I am, using as a moment of correction. And by correction, you might be confused. Like, okay, so are you giving her a consequence? What are you doing? No, I am teaching her how to do that thing better, right? So let's give the example of she hit her sister. I'm not going to go up and punish her. I'm not going to spank her. I'm going to say, hey, it looks like you're really frustrated with your sister because she knocked over your tower. Is that right? She's going to say, yeah. And I'm going to say, okay, well, I can see that's really frustrating, but I can't let you hit. We don't hit in our family. Hitting is not okay. But what you could do next time is, you could come to me and I could help you. Or you could ask your sister, could you help me pick this back up? There are options of things you can do. Do you think that you could try that next time? Yeah, Mom, I could try it next time. Okay, well, how could you make this better with your sister? Well, I could go up and I could say, I'm sorry. Okay, perfect. Why don't you go ahead and say you're sorry? And then she goes and says she's sorry. And so there is constant correction, but it's important that we're teaching our child what to do, not just punishing them with no guideline. Like, don't do that thing again. Well, then what do I do? What do I do with that feeling? And that is, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it. Okay. So I really struggled throughout my research process to find verses that had to do with punishing a child. And disciplining our child, yes, I saw tons of them, right? But I could not find anything specifically about punishing our children. I saw verses about the Lord punishing people, but I didn't even see verses of Jesus punishing people. So I think that when we look at the word discipline, which let me look at the definition again, it has a few meanings depending on the verse. So it means something like to correct or for training to righteousness, or for training in righteousness, sorry. So I think of this like when we are disciplined in something, say we are disciplined in our workout routine or our exercise or whatever, our health maybe, we are consistently working out, we're eating healthy, and we're doing all these things, right? We have like a really good steady routine, and we're constantly being, like a trainer would constantly train and help this person to get to their, desired goal, which may be, abs, which will never happen in my lifetime, but you know what I mean. Okay. You get the concept here. And it does not have anything to do with punishing. Like I don't think, and I know for a fact that a physical trainer is not going to punish me if I didn't, or they shouldn't punish me, I should say, if I didn't do my workout right? Like they're just going to teach me how to do it better so I can do it better next time, so I can do it the right way. And that's how we should be thinking of our kids, right? Like that's our job as parents. So when I was doing my research, I found this blog. It's called Jesus Without Religion. And I loved what the author said. So I'm going to read this little bit to you. So discipline is not punishment for past sins. Discipline is training for the future. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what this is. Like discipline is really just helping our kids to understand how to act, what to do. And I'm going to ask you, what do you think the best way to do that is? Is it by punishing them? Is it by spanking them? No, it's not. You're actually just teaching them, next time I get really frustrated, I'm just going to spank. Or, another one is I'm feeling really angry and really frustrated and I'm going to go put you in timeout because you did something that is just bad and I'm going to go put you in timeout. And then later on when you're ready to talk about whatever, they don't want to talk about it. And you want to know why they don't want to talk about it? Because you just taught them to not deal with it by putting them in timeout. Okay. Get the concept here? Okay. I hope so. So anyway, I believe that every day God is disciplining us to become more like Christ. And when we look at Jesus, which I believe he is the ultimate model for how we should be parenting and how we should be showing up in this world, I mean, he never punished anybody. He would correct them. He would teach them through talking, but never did he punish them. And so, and if he did punish them, please link that below, but I have read the Gospels, I don't even know, all 4 of them, like in my lifetime, like, I don't know, 30, 40 times plus. And I've never come across a verse that was him punishing somebody. So with that being said, obviously I do not believe in spanking and I do not believe in corporal punishments. So because I do not see Jesus displaying that and modeling that, I do not believe that we as parents should be doing that. And side note here, I do believe us as parents, our job, our number one job, is to be modeling who Jesus was, because this shook me when I had this realization that how I treat my child is how they are going to see God. That is the relationship they are going to have with God. And if they are fearful every single time they do something wrong, they are not going to turn to the Lord. They're going to turn away from him out of fear. And so for me, that really shook me. Okay, let's get into misconception number 3. So gentle parenting means we validate emotions and we tell our kids it's okay to be angry. Well, part of this is true. We see anger throughout the entire Bible. And we see this not just only displayed in Jesus. Jesus did display anger. We see that God is an angry God. I mean, he literally killed off the whole entire earth except for Noah out of anger. And if we look at Genesis, where God talks about creating us in his image, don't you think we would feel anger? Now, I know there are verses that talk about anger being sinful, but when I really dug into what does this verse mean? Like, what is this anger that they're talking about in this verse? What I really found was the anger was the action. It wasn't the feeling, right? We all have these feelings that are going to come within us, and those aren't the problem. It's that knee-jerk reaction. It's what we do with it. And so if we go back to, the whole punishment thing, gentle parents correct because we want to teach how we handle these behavior or these feelings. So if we are feeling anger, I want to give my kid a toolbox of things that they can do so they don't sin, right? Like, I want to give my child all the resources that could possibly help them so they do not sin. And I feel like that's our goal as a parent. I feel like that's what we're supposed to be doing. And I guess that's why I'm so confused why emotions are considered so bad to the Christian community. I feel like this is why so many kids are falling away from the church, because we're invalidating what is going on for them. I'm not saying that we need to sit there and say, this is right and this is okay and totally feel angry. It's like, yeah, you're feeling really angry, which is acknowledgement, by the way. Acknowledging, like, yes, you're feeling really angry. And what does that make you want to do? And, Emmy says, I want to hit. That's my daughter. I want to hit her. You want to hit your sister because you're feeling really angry. Okay, I can't let you do that. That is a sin to hit. And I want to help you to do the right thing here. So what could we do instead? Oh, well, I just want to hit something. Okay, well, let's go hit a pillow. Let's go hit the bed, And some people are going to say, well, they're going to, hit anything then. Well, for me, it's getting out that reflex of hitting, because being the humans that we are, that was a survival mechanism that was, I believe, that God gave us to protect ourselves. It is anything that has to do with the hands, any kind of hitting, that typically goes hand in hand with something that they are trying to protect. And so when you can see it through that lens, you realize, oh, this is just a primal thing that's going on within them. Let me teach them how to navigate this and do this differently. Let's get that feeling out, right? Because I'm going to be honest. I want to throw things. I'm 28 years old. I've thrown a toy across the room out of pure anger and I chucked it at the wall. Instead of doing something like that, imagine if I took pillows and I just started throwing them out the bed. And my kids would probably laugh at me, 1, and 2, it would really get that reflex out. So anyway, I think it's really important to note here that there is anger in the Bible. God was an angry God and Jesus was angry. We look at Jesus in Matthew, I think it's 21, 12 through 13. And he goes into the temple and he overturns the tables out of anger, right? He was angry. I mean, he used his physical force. I think if we did that today, that would be looked at as sinful. And so my question is, if Jesus is our model, then how is anger, the feeling of anger, this horribly bad thing? Again, it's the action that comes after it. So what I want to look at next is that when we see our child, feeling that anger, and then we do not separate it from the action that happens, we begin to shame our child for these feelings, right? And here's what shame does. I love what researcher Brene Brown says. So shame is, I am that, right? I am bad, or I am terrible, or it is this core belief that I am this. Where guilt is simply, I did something bad. Guilt is actually helpful, right? I think guilt is something that's much more self-induced. And so when we are shaming our kids, we're saying, you cannot do that. You cannot feel, that's a sin. It's a sin to feel angry. I mean, anytime they feel anger, they're going to be like, oh gosh, it's coming again and I'm going to sin. I'm sinning right now because I'm just feeling this. And it's like, no, like that's why mental health issues are happening, because we're telling kids you can't feel angry. And the thing is you can feel angry. It's normal to feel angry. It's controlling. It's having the self-control, which goes to the fruits of the Spirit, which I believe gentle parenting totally encompasses all the fruits of the Spirit. And self-control feels like the most important one, because if we have self-control as parents, as children, we are able to show up and not sin in those moments of anger and frustration when we want to do something that's really, really sinful. So I did a whole video on shaming. I'm going to go ahead and link that here. I'll link it below if you're watching on the podcast, because I think that it's really helpful to see these shaming phrases. They're honestly phrases that I didn't even realize I was saying until I started going to school and realizing, oh my gosh, like I am shaming my child and I'm doing it unintentionally. So watch that video. It'll really help you to kind of deep dive into, what shaming phrases look like, the effects of it, and all of that. So as you can see, feelings are not the problem. The actions that follow are. So I do believe that as a parent, it's our job to just fill our child's toolbox. And that's what gentle parenting does. I do not believe permissive parenting is okay. And I think that that's where gentle parenting gets a bad rap, because people tend to fall more on the permissive side because they don't know how to do it. And that's what I do as a parenting coach. I help you to navigate how you want to show up as a parent. What are your family values that you want to instill in your children? How can you show up as a parent that you're really, really proud of and help your child to learn how to handle these big situations? Like, it is not an easy thing. And so as a parenting coach, I kind of hold your hand and I help you to figure out what you're wanting for your family, what you believe, and how to convey that to your children. So it's really, I found coaching to be honestly the life-changing thing for me and my daughter. That's how we were able to find this deep connection. And I gotta be honest with you, and I know she's 3.5, almost 4. I don't have any issues anymore with my daughter the way I used to. And I don't know what I would do without gentle parenting. I really don't. I see her flourishing and becoming the little human that God created her to be. And I am so proud of that. I am so proud that I didn't listen to all the influencers, all the people. And I kept trying to find a way that gentle parenting was not biblical, because that was all I saw. That was what all the churches were teaching. And it it didn't make sense to me. So if you have any specific questions, make sure that you comment those below. Also, if you want my 5 secrets to raising godly children, make sure that you go in the description. That link is there. Download it. You will love it. It'll really open your eyes to how to start raising godly children. And if you have any questions about coaching, you can always email me at alexis@slowishparenting.com. And for those of you who've been around here a while, thank you guys so much for listening to this video. This, or I guess it's episode, because if you're on podcast, but this is the first episode of the Slowish Parenting podcast. And I'm just so excited for this new chapter. And I kind of went out on a bang with this one, but yeah, I'm super excited. So anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. As always, if you need anything, I'm always here.